Oh, here we
Now
go.
we're live. All right.
Now we're live. Oh,
Welcome to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson today, joined by Tim, the Freedom Variant O'Connor.
I'm here, Kevin, man, and I'm Whitehall, Pennsylvania. I'm just outside of like Bethlehem Steel, that Billy Joel song, like Allentown. There, I'm in the cultural heart of America.
There you
Hour
go.
from Philadelphia. Like it's
Right over
wild.
there in Eastern PA,
Yeah, Eastern, Western, Central, something.
something
Just
like that.
a little bit south of Scranton,
Yeah,
something like that.
right on.
Hour and a half. I don't know. But
Well,
yeah,
anyway, we got some stuff to talk about. Speaking of, the heart of America, we're going to talk about whether or not Vivek Ramaswamy is right about American culture, because over the weekend there's a big conversation about not only like should tech companies hire American workers, but also like the H-1B visas and all these other ways of companies being able to bring in workers. So there's both of those where again you have Vivek, Elon, and Alex Jones and Trump on one side, and then basically the rest of the MAGA movement on the other side.
the woke right, bro. The woke right is the woke right. Like people like the guy who coined the phrase is the ultimate woke rightist. He's just like woke. He's completely woke. His wars are great. His dead presidents are great. Like that's woke, man. Like let's cancel these leftists. Like that's woke. Stop being woke, man. Like I'm gonna fix that. I'm gonna fix the definition of woke right.
Yeah. All right. You are going to capture woke right and make sure it gets used correctly. All right.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not the only one. There's other guys trying to do it. Like that understand that the concept of woke is where if the woke left is one thing, the woke right is the red team version of the woke left. And we've got that all over the place. Like literal communists.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. So we'll define that on the show. So we'll talk about the culture. We'll talk about the immigration issues. We'll talk about the woke right, and then we might get to a couple other news, like some serious things, like the thing that happened in New Orleans, maybe briefly, and then some less serious things like the New York City Department of Health.
They're out there saving people. No, they are. Yeah. They're serious.
You gotta ask. You gotta mask at those outdoor ice rinks, Tim.
Yep. Well, that will save the world, bud. Like this. You're doing it to make other people feel comfortable. That's what it's all about, Kevin. It's not about like we want other people to be happy.
It's just like make us feel better. It's fine.
Yeah, that's what this is all about.
No. All right. So we're gonna go in about 5 seconds. As always, leave your comments. Let's go.
Now, an hour of clarity for exhausted people of our nation mired in toxic partisanship. Left versus right, us versus them. While we pay to keep our politicians fighting, how do we, the people, rise up and solve the great challenges of our time? We do it by embracing freedom and liberty. There may be no such thing as a free lunch, but this hour is as close as it gets. Welcome to A Free Solution.
Welcome to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson today, joined by Tim, the Freedom Variant O'Connor.
I'm here, brother. How are you?
Living the dream, Tim. Living the dream. We had a Christmas off. Christmas with the young boys is a lot of fun.
Bro, enjoy it because it doesn't last forever. Like they turn into teenagers and young adults, and Christmas is still fun. But like you're at the
don't rain on my parade, man. I'm basking in it.
Peak magic, man. They are just so excited by everything. It is awesome. They grow out of that in a few short years. It's gone before you know it, brother. You just live it, man. Just live the dream. Trust me, it's the best.
Yeah. We're having a good time. The toddler's excited about everything. The baby, well, he wants to play with everything the toddler's playing with. It's great.
How's that working out?
Yeah.
It might seem like a challenge, Kevin. I know. Believe me, I was there. There were times when they annoyed me, but it's peak magic season for them. They're going to become disillusioned, grumpy versions of themselves who want an iPhone and are like not happy with the sneakers you bought them, stuff like that. Like those things are going to be real. Right now, everything is magical. Everything.
Yeah.
Just enjoy it.
It'd be a good time. I'm not I get it. It's going to be fun. Right now there's still belief in Santa. There's still, there's still, the excitement of like getting presents from Santa on Christmas morning and the excitement about toys. Although we have way too much stuff now. I don't have that big of a house. So much stuff.
That is something where the advances in plastics and technology have certainly made wildly cool toys way more affordable. And hey, like again, you're gonna run out of room. Don't worry about it. Get a shed, and then
That's basically it's like, I just got to build a bigger shed and back.
yeah,
That's all I
that's
got to
it.
do.
Yeah,
Fit
man.
all my stuff. All my kids' toys now.
So look, we've got it's been a pretty exciting like week in the like zeitgeist world where people are arguing over culture and people are having meaningful conversations. So we've got your MAGA group of Republicans who seem confused about what freedom and liberty are and seem confused about culture and can just flip on a dime. Like they can just kind of lose their minds and I don't get mad at Vivek for pointing out something that I thought was, I don't know. What did you think about what Vivek said, Kevin?
Yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead and like read off what he said because
All
he had kind of a longer tweet about it. Talk about that, kind of put it in the context of like stuff like JD Vance has said and written about before too. And so we'll talk about that because like the context for this is that there's a big debate over basically visas to allow immigrants to work, right? Like tech companies, people like Elon and Vivek, who also ran a tech company, are like, well, we need to hire these folks, and the right was saying like, well, why don't you hire Americans instead, right? And so
Sure.
Vivek comes out with this. This is the kind of response to that, like back and forth happening like last week. And he goes, the reason top tech companies often hire foreign-born and first-generation engineers over native, quote, Americans is because of an innate American IQ deficit, a lazy and wrong explanation. A key part of it comes down to the C word, culture. Tough questions demand tough answers. And if you're really serious about fixing the problem, we have to confront the truth. Our American culture has venerated mediocrity over excellence for way too long, at least since the 90s and likely longer. That doesn't start in college, it starts young. A culture that celebrates the prom queen over the math Olympiad champ or the jock over valedictorian will not produce the best engineers. A culture that venerates Corey from Boy Meets World or Zack and Slater over Screech in Saved by the Bell or Stefan over Stephen Urkel in Family Matters will not produce the best engineers. In fact, I know multiple sets of immigrant parents in the 90s who actively limited how much their kids could watch those TV shows precisely because they promoted mediocrity, and the kids went on to become wildly successful STEM graduates. More movies like Whiplash, fewer reruns of Friends, more math tutoring, fewer sleepovers, more weekend science competitions, fewer Saturday morning cartoons, more books, less TV, more creating, less chilling, more extracurriculars, less hanging out at the mall. Most normal American parents look skeptically at those kinds of parents. More normal American kids view those kinds of kids with scorn. If you grew up aspiring to normalcy, normalcy is what you will achieve. Now close your eyes and visualize which families you knew in the 90s or even now who raised kids according to one model versus the other. Be brutally honest. Normalcy doesn't cut it in the hyper-competitive global market for technical talent. And if we pretend like it does, we'll have our butts handed to us by China. This can be our Sputnik moment. We've awoken from slumber before, and we can do it again. Trump's election hopefully marks the beginning of a new golden era in America, but only if our culture fully wakes up. A culture that once again prioritizes achievement over normalcy, excellence over mediocrity, nerdiness over conformity, hard work over laziness. That's the work we have cut out for us, rather than wallowing in victimhood and just wishing or legislating alternative hiring practices into existence. I'm confident we can do it.
All right. So can I just take a moment and blame Jimmy Carter for this because he created
the man's dead. You're gonna blame him.
Wait, hang on.
Is he died, man?
Is it too soon to blame Jimmy Carter? Should I save that for another show?
So soon, man.
I have a couple things to say. Yeah, I have a couple things to say. Like I certainly feel as though I was reasonably successful with my children to stress the important points about culture that Vivek is saying, okay, like that competition is good, that there are tough pieces of life that you need to invest in. I pushed my kids in sports. I pushed, but that served them well in the school zone well. Like they liked to get good grades. They liked to be at the top of the class. My son, as I brag about him all the time, he went through a period where like he wasn't even sure he was going to go to college, and I'm like, don't go unless you decide to go for a reason. Like you have to have a reason to go to college. And he's like, all right, well, I want to be a construction manager. I'm like, dude, that's probably not good enough for like you can go be an engineer. You can go take math, do your best. You will make way more money than just being a simple, like, no offense, like I'm kind of a construction manager. I'm kind of like a superintendent. There's nothing wrong with that. But you could be an engineer where 20 years in an engineering culture, you're going to be making millions, but like, you know what I mean? So it's like,
Yeah.
I kind of had to like push them through that window that school offered, that they took the harder classes, they took the classes that they were qualified for. We paid that for their college credits that they got ahead of time. Like we did that for them. I can see where people don't do that and their kids are missing out on what school is really all about. Like, all right, school's not all about just, showing off an iPhone. It's not about going back after Christmas. It's about learning,
Right.
and it's about trying to figure out what you want to be when you're an adult. Now, I didn't pick careers for my kids. They decided what they wanted. I have a lawyer. I have a kid that's in STEM and did very well his first semester in school. And I have a child that wants to be a psychologist. Like they're going to school for a reason.
Right.
That reason, I didn't necessarily pick their reason, but I certainly said, this is what life is about as you get older. Now, I grew up kind of in a poor family. I was the first kid in my family to go to college, Kevin, and I just went because like they would let me go. Like they were like, hey, this kid's really smart. Let's get him in college because that's going to be great for him. I took economics. Like economics, like I'll be honest with you. I never pictured myself sitting in some governmental office telling people what to do with their money. I never pictured selling financial instruments. None of that ever happened. I just took it because I enjoyed the first semester of it. Everything else was easy. I took Calc 1. I got like an A. I'm like, well, economics seems kind of tricky, and I'm going to have to work hard to try to figure out what to do with that. Turns out I figured out nothing. Like, and I went into construction eventually. So I don't know.
Right.
There's a mold breaking thing there that Vivek's talking about, right?
Yeah. No, I mean, he does talk about that. Well, and so I think like some of his point is like, there's a lot of parents who seem to have, been less successful than you have in getting kids to understand like the importance of like being driven in school, right? Now, I kind of disagree with him. Like, like you can be like into sports and like you don't have to be doing like the math Olympiad. So I did like that stuff in addition to sports, but like that competitive nature, the effort to be the best that you can be in any circumstance, like those can translate into other skills that are like academic and work based too, right? Like the teamwork you learn, like you learn in a sports setting, I think is applicable to stuff that you would learn in a workplace. So like I don't quite agree with that. I don't think you have to be full like Tiger Mom and like just honing in on like math tutoring every single weekend. You can have a life, you can do this other stuff. But I think some of his point is understandable, right? Because and I think back to like I just recently reread JD Vance's book, Hillbilly Elegy, and he kind of talks about how like there's a culture that can exist among some Americans where it's like there is no drive to succeed. There is no drive to like do better. And in fact, many of the people around you will have that kind of crabs in the bucket effect, right? They'll try to drag you back down the moment you try to do better for yourself. They'll think that you're being, uppity or like, rising above your station if you do that. And, I know folks like that. I've been around that a good chunk of my life, not with my immediate family, but I know a lot of folks who are like that. And, you can see it. And like that is the type of thing. That's the type of thing that JD Vance talks about a lot, where he's like, that's the thing that is hurting American culture. And when Vivek's talking about in the end, like wallowing in victimhood and wishing or legislating like hiring practices, there's a bunch of people who respond to this as like, well, why shouldn't you hire me? Like I went to Harvard and I got like a 3.5. Like, shouldn't you just hire me? And people like Vivek are like, no, man, like show why you deserve to be hired. Don't just like think you were entitled to something. And then that I threw the Harvard point out not only because I saw it all over Twitter, but because that ranges down all over American culture.
Yeah.
That
Well,
victimhood, that entitlement, that like, man, someone else is getting something that I think that I deserve, even though I haven't worked hard for it or strove for it or put in the work for it or, like shown that I can do the thing to add value to these companies to get hired. And you should just give me money. You should just give me a high paying job. And people like Vivek are like, look, some of these folks getting like that we're hiring with these like H-1B visas is because they put in the grind all of their lives to try to achieve this goal, and they're going to go do that and create value for my company. And until you understand that, no, you're not getting hired either. And that there is a problem of entitlement, both in the working classes of American culture and in the elite institutions of American culture, of entitlement that you think that you should just get handed these positions of power or good positions rather than having to participate in the process of creating something great.
I think that's a fantastic point. I'd like to point out that on some level, being a competitive kid that went to a really good state university, I've watched Harvard destroy its brand anyway. Okay, through cultural admissions, like through legacy admissions, through hey, like you're great at like I don't know, made up stuff. The whole admission scandals. They legitimately went through a period where they were discriminating against Asian kids. Just to like these things, they destroyed their own brand. And if you're hey, graduated from Harvard, it's almost like people are going to be like, who cares?
Sure. And my point isn't specifically like at Harvard either. It's at any of these schools, right? Because like you get people like there's this like people who think that they're elite because they've gone to a certain college, right? And just because they've done that, they think, oh, I have made it, and therefore I am entitled to get something, right? But the thing is, at every level of college, and I had to learn this lesson too, because there are millions of college students who graduate every year that I've got a 4-year degree. That means I deserve to get a good job. Because that's what I assumed. I got out of college and I was like, well, I went into politics and I didn't want to keep doing that directly as my day job because like it would have meant like not spending any time with my fiance. And I don't know if it would have worked out if I'd gone into politics for full time. I chose my wife over that. And I was like, well, I got a 4-year degree though. So like, I'm just going to get a job right away. It's going to be easy. Like, no problem. No, that's not how it works, because it turns out everyone wanted to see, like, they wanted me to prove that I could add value to their company. And until you get in that mindset of understanding, like, oh, I've got to demonstrate that I'm going to add value to that company, you are not entitled to that job. You're not going to get that job. You need to flip your mindset and say, okay, how do I add value to the people around me or build something myself, which is a lot of hard work and luck and connections and understanding, like, how the world works. That's really tough on people. And instead, what they do is they say, oh, man, this is so hard. Life is so hard. It's harder than it's ever been. The government needs to come in and fix this for me. And you get that on the left and on the right.
Look, I agree. I think there is, there's a couple different directions that I want to go in, Kevin, because there's some confusing messaging out there, and I'm not even sure which way I want to go to start with, because I've already taken my shot at Harvard. I agree with the fact that people aren't interested in adding value. I still, again, almost want to go back to blaming Jimmy Carter and the culture of our educational system that is almost practically mandated by a federal agency, okay? That they're saying, we're teaching culture, we're teaching equity, we're teaching like proper behavior, we're anti-bullying, we're teaching these kids how to get through life. We're not teaching these kids, they're saying, go to college, because if you go to college, they don't finish the sentence, but going to college is going to make your life better. That's what they say.
Right.
They don't say what I said to my kids.
And then they rely on the college. It's like, and then the college will teach you how to actually be an adult, right?
Right. And it doesn't teach you how to add value. And it's almost like that entitlement mentality pervades all of our educational systems, even our public education system. Like, it's just like, if you do this, everything's going to be better for you. It doesn't say anything about how you have to have it's like, okay, public school education, right to college, you're going to be great for a government job. Like, go work for the DMV, okay? Like, you're going to be great at that because that's your mindset. But you have to add value. That's what the goal should be. But that's not taught anywhere. Like, that's not taught in any funded state system. It's just not.
No. And so, yeah, and like I think your point's well taken, right? Like, because it's a problem up and down the board, right? Again, it's a problem on the elite level of people like, well, listen, I've done good enough. I've gotten my piece of paper saying like some institution has told me I've done good enough. Like, why can't I just like succeed now? And then like in the public education systems, like on the K through 12 level too, like, and this is something that cuts across all classes. It's like they don't prepare you effectively for like the rigors and challenges of adulthood. And I don't think it's just on the government though, like because that's one thing I want to say is like it is
I
not
agree.
just like the government should fix this, the education system should do better. No, it's like there is in some chunks of the American culture, and I can't just say like American culture generally because we are a very diverse nation in
Correct.
every sense of the word, but like there are certain chunks of the American culture just like, man, why bother trying that much? Why bother like going above and beyond and trying to do something great?
Yeah,
And
yo,
that is
your,
in go
your
ahead.
crabs in the bucket analogy was perfect there. I think I even experienced that on some level when I was thinking about leaving my small rural community and going to a big state university an hour away. Some of my friends, my family was kind of excited for me. They were a little doubtful. They were skeptical. Like, regardless of how smart I was a bit of a wild card always. So they were like, college may not be for you, Tim, but you can break out of that easy. Like that's something that you can just shed. I think that what it shouldn't school counter culture though. Like, shouldn't we be able to say, shouldn't school at least offer the ideas that you need to add value to society? That's what we're here to offer to help you to do. And I don't think that message is being taught. If kids aren't getting that at home, they're not getting it from school.
Yeah.
Does,
I mean,
does that make
that's
sense?
yeah, no, that's the tough part though. It's like, okay, like what schools
I
like
know.
role in this, right? Like, cause you said like it should school
I
be
know.
countering culture? Like, well, yes, the leftists certainly think so.
I know. Like, isn't that what they're doing? Certainly it's a conundrum.
Yeah, like so
No,
they sort of are, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, like I mean, like, but again, like, okay, like can institutions be like set up, can communities be set up to like try to support kids whose families are like in that mindset of like, why would you ever like think that you can like leave our town or get anything more than a minimum wage job or hope to be on government benefits for most of your life? And again, that's a lot of what like JD Vance's book talks about. Is like that was his family and like a lot of his town. There's people who are like that, right? And then they say like they come in and say like, oh, the government should rescue us and they should prevent like other people from coming here and like just take care of us all the time. And like that sort of like toxic mentality like is bad. And I think like it should be like there should be like an effort to like improve that culture from within to like do better. Like there should be people, maybe educators, who are like, hey, you can achieve these things and here are the realistic things that you can do to prepare yourself for adulthood. And it's not just go to college, end of story. It's like, here are all the things that you actually need to succeed in the world, the soft skills necessary, the networking, the working as a team, the not losing your temper, like that sort of stuff, right? Like, can schools do that? Is it realistic for schools to do that? I don't know.
I don't know either, but I feel like it's if people could choose their kids' schools, we would have more American-made engineers, Kevin, because parents would say, I'm sending my kid to the math school because the math school is going to kick, that's going to set this kid up for a real life that is going to benefit him. Not the basket weaving school.
Yeah.
The math school.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So on that note, we do have to head to break. Thanks again for joining us here on A Free Solution. We're going to be back in just a few minutes. Talk to you soon. And you're talking about like the basket weaving school. That is like basically the college I went to. The Wells College where I graduated.
Nice.
I mean, like I love being there, but like also it felt like a summer camp frequently. Like literally we would like link arms and sing around trees, and like we had required swimming lessons. And I did learn a lot there though.
Well, look, there could be a fun environment. At Binghamton, it was very competitive. Okay, up and down and left and right, and I made a few good friends, but mostly everything felt competitive, including friendships. Okay, like it was like, all right, I'm in school with a bunch of lower middle class drivers when I'm a poor kid, right? I'm not even lower middle class. All right. These kids had money that made me look like crazy. Like I was like, I can't believe how much money their parents give them. Like they have $50 to spend on a Friday. Like, what is that? Like this was back in the 80s when $50 was a lot of money. And I'm just like, my mom would send me $10 and she'd be like, don't you dare buy beer. And she wouldn't even send that $10 every week. You know what I mean? And I'm like, you know what? Screw this. I'm getting a job. Like, that's it. You know, like,
yeah, do. Was work study a thing back then? Like that?
It was, but like, what was it? $50 a week? What am I going to do with that? Like, that's nothing.
My beer.
I'd already worked in the restaurant over the summer. So I'm like, oh no. Like I started understanding what real money was. I don't know. Should we do it on the show? But I think there's something that we should. Our friend Trig out there says it isn't culture. There was a counter narrative about the fact that why engineers are getting hired from other countries, and it would be the H-1B1 visa, and that they are able to purchase this kind of labor at a substantially discounted rate in a system that basically amounts to indentured servitude. Should we talk about it on the show, or
no?
do you
I
want
think
to
we
just
should talk
hash
about
it
it
out
on the
here?
show.
Okay.
So no, let's talk about it on the show because we'll kind of wrap up the culture thing like quickly, and then let's talk about the actual policy issues. All right. So yeah, let's go back in like a few seconds. All right, let's get her done, culture.
Get her done, culture. I love it.
All right, 3, 2. Welcome back to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson, your host today, joined by Tim, the Freedom Variant O'Connor.
I'm here, brother, and I feel like our conversation was a little bit incomplete, though. We covered the cultural side of it very thoroughly. I think that we both agree that there's cultural aspects to this situation that Americans themselves could do better, because even as whomever I am, whatever I am, I managed to shove my kids through that window of opportunity, get them through school without them being a complete broken mess, without them. My youngest kid, but he's the baby in the family. So without this sense of entitlement, like besides the fact that he's achieving very well in school.
It's worth making sure we remove senses of entitlement and instill a culture of striving for greatness, right? Like it is still worth striving to be the best, and hopefully there still is, and then will continue to be a growing portion of the American population who says, yeah, we should try to do great things. Again, I see it. It's sometimes in the people around me, the people who phone it in all the time, and I'm like, man, that's not me. That's not how my parents raised me. I want to do my best in everything I do, and I think that is a thing worth spreading and inspiring other people to do as well.
Yeah, but so the counter narrative to this was like, no, Americans are producing enough engineers. What happens is tech companies and places that are in engineering intense are able to purchase labor from other countries through this HB1 visa at a substantial discount, that they would, if that didn't exist, that we would be getting even better engineers from other countries, and our STEM programs would be probably flourishing because Americans would be making more money at it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So I understand the argument. Basically, like, this visa is advantageous for companies to hire. It is easier for them to hire that way and cheaper for them to hire that way. And they get not employee loyalty, but like employee, obligations to stay with that company by. So let's steel man this argument, right?
Yeah.
So the steel man of this argument, it goes like this: that if you hire someone with an H-1B visa, so they basically have to apply to get in. You get approved. This company has to post on a government website that they're doing this. The minimum salary is $60,000. But if you get hired with this, it's nearly impossible to change your job. Now, it's not impossible, but it is very difficult to change your job. And if you lose your job, chances are the U.S. government's going to tell you to go to whatever country you come back from. And so there's a lot of strong incentives to work extra hard for lower pay, for, maybe put up with a bunch of nonsense that like U.S. citizens and green card holders would not put up with in order to keep your visa and stay in the country where maybe you've started to build a life. And I say this as someone who is friends with people who've had visas like this or similar ones where they're like, man, I would love to switch jobs, but I can't. And like the process of trying to do that is so difficult. They don't know it's worth it, and they can't go home. They can't switch jobs. So they put up with a lot of nonsense for lower salaries than like you or I would in the same position.
Correct. Like their visa is held by the person that pays them. There's several risks there for the person that got imported here. Like if they make that person mad, if they do a bad job on something, they can get fired. They can lose their visa. There's dirty tricks that those guys can play to set examples on people. That's number one. Number two, the standard of living in America and the amount of pay in America is multiple times what these guys can make in their own countries.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, like 60K in US dollars. Like if you're coming from, like El Salvador or wherever, like, yeah, it's huge. It's like, man, like that is substantial. I mean, honestly, like most other countries in the world, I mean, gosh, even the UK, for goodness sakes, like their annual salary for someone in my position is like the equivalent of like $30,000 US. Like it's
so that argument, I have a hard time countering that argument. Both the human rights abuse of the visa system, okay, because they have those visas all over, the HB1s, the agricultural visas. They all have this concept where the person that holds their visa can make that person an illegal alien the very next day. So, like, you don't want to,
there's a lot of
opportunities
opportunities.
On Saturday morning. Yeah. You're fired, bud. Go back to Mexico. See you later. Like that's not right.
Yeah.
That's
there's a lot of opportunities for abuse. And it's different. Like there are certain visas where that's not the case. Like I think they're called like O1 visas, where basically if you are like a PhD, like you can come in and like fart around a little bit more and find a job. But like those are pretty rare. But the H1 visas, like, the H1Bs, there's quotas for all this stuff. These are more like kind of high skill workers. So I'd say like, I kind of agree. I don't like the incentive systems of these visas. And I end up falling on the side of like, well, if we have all these bad incentives with these visas, the solution isn't let's just stop it and don't allow people with talent to come here and bring their skills to American companies. Let's just make it so it's a little bit easier if, so the employer doesn't have so much power in that relationship, so that like they can go and get new jobs and not put up with like, abuses, and like be able to come here and establish a life and build networks in their community. That's the solution to that, is to just make immigration a little bit crappier. And I will say, like, the incentives, like for companies to do this, like it is expensive for them to do this, right? Like most companies, it is easier. It's so much easier to hire a U.S. citizen or a green card holder than it is to get someone in a visa, because you have to pay for all this stuff. You take on some risk and liability in doing this. You have to prove that like you could not hire a qualified American person for many of these positions before posting them. So it's not easy. It's not as if a lot of companies are turning to this as a first resort. I think people like Vivek and Elon, who himself benefited from like the H-1B visa program, like say that they like using this program. And Donald Trump as well said he likes this program. They did it because they were not able to find American workers, because there's just a bunch of Americans who, like we talked about in the last segment, like think they have the qualifications but aren't willing to put in the work to show it in the same way that some of these other workers are. And that's a problem, right? Like, again, you are not owed this, you're not owed any position. And again, I think that the sooner you as a young adult realize this, the better off you're going to be. But that's what it is like, it's still difficult, it's still expensive. Like this isn't something that companies want to do like right off the bat.
Right. So, but there was like rumors going around as part of this argument that these companies are actually getting tax credits to hire HB1 visa applicants, and I see no evidence of that. When I kind of always search these things, now it's easy to search them through AI. I didn't see where they get tax credits that make it even cheaper. There are expenses to the businesses that, like, say they're going to pay a guy from India $60K to come here, where paying an American would be a lot cheaper if they could pay him $65 or $70K by the looks of things. There's a management system associated with HB1 visas that you have to meet. So, those are real expenses. So I'm a little confused about it. I think we get triggered a little bit by xenophobia. And again, I do want to point at the fact that we knew that there was a shortage of engineers. We knew that there was a shortage of American-produced engineers for decades.
Yeah.
If the system owes us anything at all that we pay exorbitantly for, it would have been to encourage more engineers to come out of the schooling system. Like, period.
We need more engineers, coders, doctors, who makes that more difficult. The AMA, nurses, like the huge nursing shortage right now, which is why a lot of nurses have a huge amount of negotiating power if you get through the system. But yeah, and like it's difficult for people to like transfer their licenses over from foreign countries too. So like it's a whole thing. Like people are like, oh man, it's so like we're just importing all these doctors. I'm like, no, it's really a pain for that to work actually, because we make it more difficult and because we have a shortage of medical professionals up and down the scale. Like it makes medical care more expensive, and that's a problem. And actually, I want to take this moment because I think it works right now. I want to admit, I think Alex Jones is right about something.
Oh no! Stop it! No one's
Alex Jones. Alex Jones was correct on something, and he says, and I'm gonna read this. I'm gonna quote tweet directly. He says, "It is classic American policy to brain drain the best from across the planet and bring them in here. Musk has always advocated for this policy. Everyone whining that Elon Musk is flip-flopped or either ignorant or lying. Elon, to a great extent, is the poster child for this program working." Alex Jones is right. Like that, we should want the best from all over the world. Like this is like that makes America a better place, and that's like again what I think what makes America fundamentally like work better than most other countries in the world is that it's the old like Ronald Reagan, like is one of his last speeches where he talks about like if you go to Japan, you can never really be Japanese. If you go to France, you can never really be French. But anyone from all over the world, French, Japanese, Italian, like South African, whatever, you can come here and become an American. And that's the dream. Okay, let's bring in the most talented people who can't make stuff work because their governments are corrupt and like their education systems stink and like their business culture just isn't developed. They come here where that talent would otherwise be squandered, and they can make something great happen that benefits not just themselves, but a bunch of people around them and maybe, everyone all over, right? Again, people like Elon Musk, a lot of these tech companies, like new product development, engineers, like there's great stuff happening all over, in part because people came here because they couldn't make it work in India. They couldn't make it work in Europe. They couldn't make it work in South America. And they came here and they kicked butt. And that is what makes America great, honestly.
One of the many things. I think, again, when our American culture gets we're trapped in this identity politics war. And so we're not a melting pot anymore. We're not a mixing pot anymore. We're a collection of separate identities where everybody is vying for attention from the government. I think that's one of the reasons that if we could fix that, less people would freak out about this stuff. We have a very interesting comment out there from No One on YouTube.
That's the name.
Yeah, No One on YouTube. From No One. Former H1B here, 30 to 40% are Indian consulting companies, very non-top 1% types that should go to America's. Top tier Silicon Valley companies would fall apart without the remaining 60 to 70% of H1Bs. I think that he's basically supporting what I said, right? Like that they're kind of purchasing average talent to have indentured servants.
Maybe. I mean, again,
I'm pretty uncomfortable with that piece of it. I want it to be freer for them. Come here, be able to change jobs. Like I get it,
Yeah, I mean, like on the policy side, I think you and I agree on that. Though it's like, it should be easier if you are talented and the company wants to hire you. Again, like my like libertarian mindset is like, you know what? If an employer wants to hire you and you want to work for them, the government shouldn't get in the way of that, right? Like that's my general mindset, and that applies to immigrants as well. And like to me, like again, I work in a digital space. Man, if I want to hire someone from Canada or from Italy, which I tried to do one time, or like Argentina or wherever, and they're willing to take what I'm willing to pay them, they like the job, why shouldn't I be able to easily hire them if that's what I want to do? And again, this is, my job. You can do it anywhere in the world.
Here's a critique, Kevin, that I've always been curious about your answer to, because it's one I struggle with. I don't have a clear answer for normies on this one. That programs like this serve to suppress wages of American workers. Like, I think on some level that argument is persuasive. What do you think?
Maybe again, I think it goes back to like, I don't think you were entitled to that job, because to me, like, again, A, it's easier to hire a U.S. citizen. B, you're probably going to understand the culture better. And then like C, like, again, you should, as an American, be able to demonstrate value, right? And I'll say this too, like my last job, I worked for a Canadian company, right? Again, I worked for, it was a Canadian company that had like an American branch. So like it luckily wasn't too complicated from like an immigration perspective, but like I just worked for a Canadian guy. It made sense. So did I take a job from a Canadian in that sense? Like, well, I guess, but like, again, I had the talent that they were looking for. I provided value when I did that job. Like, why would anyone like get in the way of that relationship? Because like, I've been on like sort of the other side of that, right? Again, I stayed here, but I worked for a company that was like, whose headquarters was based in a foreign country, and that's fine. The relationship like worked. And I think anyone should have the flexibility to do that. I think it makes people stronger. It makes companies stronger, and it helps people find talent from like wherever.
Fair enough. I don't feel as though you specifically answered my driving wages down question, but I philosophically agree with you. I believe in free trade. I think it benefits all of us.
So we're running out of time, but like we'll keep talking about the wages thing in a second, because I think that is a major part of the argument. So I think it's worth talking about. So we're gonna be back in just a few minutes here on A Free Solution. Talk to you soon. And we'll read this comment too.
I do like that comment.
He says, I'm an Indian H-1B and I make $400K a year. So it's not true all that H-1Bs are paid less than U.S. citizens. However, Indian tech firms who bring employees from India pay less. So yeah, it's a little bit of mixed bag.
Yeah. There was some
like it depends, right? Like if you have a lot of talent and it's for a highly competitive field, yeah, you're going to be able to command a higher salary, and like tech companies are hungry for that talent too. Every company is hungry for that talent.
There's a certain amount of victimization that goes on too. Like Indian tech companies will bring them here, sub them out to other businesses. Like these are the stories that I'm hearing, and take 25%, 30% of their pay.
Yeah.
An employment agency type relationship.
Yeah, so not great. I will say that like there's a reason that like a lot of people will take that opportunity too, because it's better than the alternative. Like, I mean, it's sort of like
I get it.
Yeah, like if you still have the opportunity to get the United States, it's hard to switch job. It's not impossible, but you could build a life here, establish a life, and like even if like your company is being a bit shady about that, you're willing to tolerate that a bit more because getting to America is a good opportunity. And I would say, like, again, my solution to that isn't just to accept that situation. It's hey, maybe we should have some reform so that people aren't trapped in bad situations. And I'll read a couple more comments from Dan here on YouTube, who says, U.S. companies who hire international students and then sponsor H-1B pay the same as U.S. citizens. It's a pain to hire H-1B, $10K to hire, $20K to sponsor a green card, $10K each time there's an extension.
Yeah.
So yeah, expensive.
Yeah, that points to what I was saying earlier, that they could hire an American citizen, pay them slightly more, and still put money in their pocket. And that one of the failures is, besides Vivek pointing at culture, is that there's no way to break out of the culture right now. Like you can't pick your kid's school. Your kid is stuck with that culture that school offers. And even if you're trying to push them out of the crab-filled bucket, the crab bucket still exists in school, Kevin. It's still
No,
there.
I know. I mean,
you
like
know?
this is something I'm staring down the barrel of right now, right? Again,
Yeah.
I live in the city of Rochester, like one of the crappiest schools
Oh
in
God,
the
brother.
systems in the state, right? So, okay, so me as a parent, as like my kid's already technically in a Rochester City school, he's what's called an EPK program. I'm already like, okay, how the heck do I make sure that like he doesn't end up in like a regular city school program because of that exact like mentality where the expectations are so low. The expectations are so low of the students that like it ends up setting all of them up for failure because like they're excited, like, oh my goodness, we got a 60% graduation rate this year. Like that is not acceptable.
Congratulations. Wow.
Yeah,
It's
like that.
it's not interesting enough. You're not doing a good enough job. You're failing. It's
Yeah.
look, I again, I mean, as a joke, I want to blame Jimmy Carter, but I'm not joking. We federalized certain aspects of government. We put federal standards on this stuff. We applied certain woke nonsense to schools when we should be saying science, math. Let's figure out a fun way to do this for people. Let's let kids and their parents pick the school that's best for them, because the parents, if a parent says their kid is going to be good at math and they mean it, that kid's going to be good at math, right? Like that, they're going to take the steps to ensure that happens, you know?
Well, yeah, and the thing you always run into, and again, this happens in Rochester too, where they tried to take one of the schools that was succeeding and say like, well, maybe we should just like lower the standards for everyone. It's like, oh, well, not every parent is going to advocate for the kids to get in that good school. And what do we do for the parents whose kid, or for the kids whose parents like just aren't there for them, right? So okay, so we just got to equalize everything,
dumb it down for everybody. Like that's the
so
thing.
You move away from opportunities for people whose families do want to move up, succeed, who have that drive to be competitive, and then make it hard for them to like be in an environment where they'd actually be able to thrive, right? So like that's a conversation that at one point I don't think it's happening now, but happened around like School of the Arts in Rochester, and you know there's some like technical schools in Rochester. So like, I mean, we just kind of flatten it out a bit. Like no, like the reason why those schools work is because they have standards to get in, and then it allows students who are driven enough to want to succeed to be there and be in an environment with other students who are that way. So they're building each other up rather than like constantly dragging each other down. And that stinks if you don't get into one of those schools. That is a problem to be solved. But tearing down what makes those schools work does not solve the other problem.
I'm with you. Look, our buddy Dan Dave out there from YouTube's coming up with some fire comments. Please get rid of companies who only business model is sponsoring H-1B and then send to other that's the subletting, subcontracting one that I was talking about, where they basically hire out chattel labor under the threat while they shake them down for 25 to 30% of their freaking salary. It's probably arguably still better for the people coming from India, because they're still going to be making 25K, which compared to the average salary in India is pretty good. But yeah, it's a horrible, awful business model. But like, if we don't allow sharks in the system, somehow freedom gets eroded. I don't know. I get a little caught up with these things where I'm like, am I really a libertarian, bro?
People respond to incentives though, right? Again, like if you have a system where there is an incentive to profit from like exploiting feels like maybe a bit strong, but like taking advantage of how the structure of this works, and to arbitrage that for other companies, well, they're going to do it, right? Again, I don't think of companies as like fundamentally good or evil. I think of companies of they're going to find the cracks to like eke out a profit no matter what. So if you create a system that allows for that, that's what companies are going to do. It is incumbent on government to like address that.
It's a little bit like arbitrage, right? Like you're like, all right, I see a weakness over here, so if I can bring STEM people from India to the United States, I deserve to make a lot of money. And actually, there is an argument to be made that somebody that has the skills to do that, to find the people, to get people that are talented enough to make an impact, a positive impact on an American business, filling a need. It's like, it's not really price gouging, is it, Kevin? They're kind of like, they in a way deserve to make a lot of money. Now, I'm uncomfortable with some of the coercion aspects of the HB1. And if we could fix that, that'd be a lot better, right?
Right. Like, I mean, if these companies look more like what temp agencies do, which also do that sort of thing, unless, like, hey, we're going to totally uproot your life. I think that's a different set of incentives there.
Correct. There is a big thing, like a threat thing there, a disproportionate power base somehow. Like the holder of the HB1 has no threat to his HB1, whereas everybody that enters into an employment agreement with him has a threat to theirs, and that seems unfair. That gives somebody a disproportionate amount of power in a negotiation, coercion, if you will.
But let's get one more comment from Dan. But it says American culture is based on happiness. Allow your kid to pursue what they want. Indian, Chinese, cutthroat. If not an engineer, you're considered a loser. STEM education should be a priority. Yeah. I mean, like, again, I have mixed feelings on that. Like, to me, I'm just like, because again, I was a history major. You know, or worse is probably not the smartest thing to pursue. I should have done chemistry or something, which I was good at, but I was like, no, I want to do history. I like it. I thought it was more interesting. But like, I think as long as you are the type of person who is like trying to be the best that they can be, you're going to find ways to succeed, right? So, like,
I agree with that. I endorse that sentiment.
Yes. And like, not everyone, like, by definition, not everyone can be like an engineer or a doctor, or like there are going to be some people who are going to do like different stuff. And again, part of what makes like American entrepreneurial like ism like great is that people come up with like weird ways to fit the needs of like the people in the communities around them. And so like, it doesn't always look like, you know, sometimes it does look like opening a coffee shop. That's fine. That's great. Again, I think if you're going to open a coffee shop, like the thing I have, so we used to do this thing at Wells College. We had a junior mug, and there's a quote that was attributed to Abraham Lincoln, although I don't know if it's actually him, which is just what it says on my mug is, whatever you are, be a good one. So that's what I have printed on my mug. And so that's my advice to whatever you are, be a good one. You know, just try to, you know, put everything into what you got, be the best you can be. And like, if more people can adopt that mindset, I think American culture will be just fine.
Right. No, I agree. Dave has one more good comment. Americans who do become engineers and developers do it because they want, not because of culture around them. They are awesome and some of the best I've worked with. That I've been immersed in this conversation, and that was something that people were like, no, listen, we pay more for American engineers because, number one, they are really good at what they do. They are immersed in understanding. Then they have communication strengths that they're able to communicate with the Indian dudes, and they're able to communicate with our customers, and they can make everything flow, and they're perfect for management, and they're perfect for engineering production, and they're perfect for teaching new skills to people that are entering the work. Like, American engineers, American grown engineers are in demand. Like they are. This is real, you know?
Yeah. No, 100%. Again, like there's a bunch of opportunities out there for people who, you know, show that they can do the work and then like put their all into it. Right. That's, you know, and that's kind of my point. And like circling back to like the whole Vivek posts, like really like, you know, and the whole JD Vance thing too, as well, as like the point of all this is that like Americans should try to, again, not assume that they're entitled to just get jobs and positions. You are always competing with everyone. You're competing with your fellow Americans all the time too, right? You know, like there's, you know, if I want to go work at another like ad agency in Rochester, I'm going to be competing with not just people from Rochester, but like people all over the country who might want to work a remote job for some of the stuff. And like that, you've just got to like accept that is a part of life. You have to prove that you're going to be the best fit for that company, whatever that means in that circumstance. And the sooner you can do that and just say, okay, that's the way it is. That's the way the world works. And I'm not going to be like, I learned Greek in college, therefore I should get a job. Like, no, who cares, man? Like, I don't care.
Do something.
And I'll say, and again, I say that as like, I've been in a hiring position because I've looked at resumes where people like are in college, they've gotten out of college, they've gotten a degree in exactly the thing I do. And I asked them like, okay, like, how would you set up a campaign? Like, I've never done that. What do you mean? Like, you've never actually done the work? I'm like, man, your college failed you. Your college fails you to prepare for like to actually get a job in this place, because I need someone who can like run a Google Ads campaign right away. And the person who didn't go to college at all but has been working on Google Ads campaigns for 3 years is way more valuable to me than someone who got a degree and like feels like they're just entitled to get a job but not like show me a portfolio of what they've done.
Right. But they know they can do it. And you should hire them.
Yeah, no, but like I got this class. I got like straight. I'm like, that's cool, man. Like, but okay, tell me how you would apply this situation at least. Like, oh, but I got the degree. Sorry, I don't actually care that much. I don't have a degree in marketing. Like, show me, like, talk to me about what you can do, even if you haven't actually done it. Like, talk to me about how you would do it.
That's honestly for mine. If I can just get guys to show up, I can, and like
I hear that a lot too. Well, we didn't even talk about like the situation in Ohio where like they're hiring all the Haitians.
Yeah.
Remember like the factory owner who's like, bro, I just want like workers to show up, and the Haitians show up, the Americans don't.
I know. Look, I have if I can get them to show up over a period of time, my vivacious personality and my dedication to top quality work turns them into exceptional human beings.
Yeah.
No, but look, it's the thing is I'm negotiable. I understand if you're having a bad day. You know what I mean? It's just like anytime somebody's getting freaked out, I'm like, hey, just keep moving. All right, you made a mistake. Let's just keep moving. Let's fix your stupid mistake and don't do it again. And let's just keep moving. It's as simple as that. Life can be really simple. You can be awesome just by keeping moving. Like you can be a really important part of a team that gets to be worth a lot of money by just keeping moving. By just
right. They're like, don't freak out and leave. Like just okay. I mean, especially I think like this is why it's really good for like young people to get a job. Like, man, I think back on it, I was like, man, I was so stupid at some of these jobs, just so stupid. And luckily, like people are like, okay, he's 16, he's 17, like we're gonna teach him what he did wrong, and then I would like absorb the lesson and just like keep chipping away, and like, but you'll meet other people who are 35 years old, and it just stops them, or they don't bother to try in the first place, like. Again, like J.D. Vance talked about in his book, like people who would like as like warehouse job, like people would just like take several 45-minute bathroom breaks in a day, or like just forget to show up for like a week at a time and then expect to like keep their job. And it's like yeah, man.
I have occasionally threatened to put the porta potty up on the roof to make it just a little bit easier for people to not disappear for quite so long.
Yeah, right.
I generally only have to say that once, and look, the job's tough,
Yeah.
It's physically rigorous. I'm always impressed with people that can do it. Even younger guys that can do it as well as me. And so I've got guys now that can do it better than me. I'm pretty strong for a 60-year-old dude. I'm really strong for a 70-year-old dude, but like for like some of it's getting a little bit challenging, and I got young guys that are definitely stronger, and that's good. Like they're not as smart as me though. By God, got that going for me still.
Yeah, you got the wisdom.
Yeah. We got one more segment to do.
We do. All right, we should get back to the last segment. Yeah, we're gonna switch topics a little bit.
Yeah.
And yeah. All right. So let's get back in 3, 2, 1. Welcome back to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson, your host for today, joined by Tim, the Freedom Bearing O'Connor.
Hey, Kevin, look, I feel like sometimes the WSL, the WLEA, and the WCKR audience, whom we appreciate to know, and miss out on some of some of the more in-depth conversations that they could participate in, and then thereby contribute to the radio show. So, guys, we go live Wednesday nights around 9 o'clock. We're live on X. We're live on YouTube. Just check us out. A Free Solution. We're all over the place. Our podcast gets released to Spotify and I don't know, Apple, all sorts of places.
Yeah, it's an Apple podcast. Like basically wherever you find podcasts, you can find us.
Yeah, so
it's out there.
We had a great conversation with a guy named Dan Dave, a former HB1 lottery winner or migrant from India. He kind of clued us in on a bunch of stuff. We shared a lot of that during the break. We'd love to have more people join us during the show. But still, we're glad that the people at WLEA, WCKR, and WSL listen to us, and we love you guys. It's great, So anyways, Kevin, what do we got next here?
All right, so we'll do a serious topic, then we'll do a light topic. So a serious topic, which again, it happened last night. It's recent. New stuff's gonna come out by the time the radio show comes out. So like if we get stuff wrong, the truck attack in New Orleans,
Yeah.
it's an awful situation and people just trying to have a good time on New Year's. And some
It's
jerk in a truck like drives, over barriers and like there wasn't really any barriers weirdly in that spot, but just goes through and knocks some people down, and then the police end up killing the guy.
yeah. It
And
it it is being investigated as a terror attack.
yeah,
The president has made a statement that he does look like he was inspired by ISIS. I do think it. Um, I'm uncomfortable with thinking what I want to say right now, but I think that there's a lot of violence in the Middle East right now that the U.S. is writing checks for, and I think that terrorism's bad no matter when it's done. I'm glad that this guy has ultimately met his maker. That's it. That's the way to deal with these bad people. But I don't know. Like if there was less violence in the world, there would be less violence in the world, Kevin. And it's really as freaking simple as that.
It could be that. I mean, like, so the reason why I'm sort of like I don't really want to comment on too much stuff is because, like, all right, so this is a guy, like people were like, oh my goodness, he's a migrant and stuff. No, he was a U.S. citizen, served in the army, went to Afghanistan apparently, but then somehow is mixed up in ISIS. Again, part of me is like, okay, did he have a mental break? Is it a situation like? And I know a bunch of people still take the other side of this to me. It's like a situation in like what happened to Rochester where the FBI was kind of pushed him along too. Like, and here I am being the conspiracy theorist on this one, but like, man, it happens so often. Like, I'm certainly okay. I'm not saying that's what happened. I'm saying like, I wouldn't be surprised if like we get 6 months from now and we hear that like he was.
The FBI wanted to foil an FBI terror plot and failed once again. Yeah. Let's say it like that. And let's make a joke out of it because it's funny at this point, Kevin.
Yeah. It's so like it, but I don't know. Like it could be any number of things. Like maybe he really was radicalized at one point. Maybe he had a mental break. Maybe like people were like taking advantage of him. Maybe he's just a jerk. Maybe he's just a terrible person who again, got what he deserved.
Maybe he chose violence for no reason that we're even ever going to understand.
Right.
So all those things are possible.
Because again, I try not to like get too ahead of ourselves on this. For the same reason, like we talked about, like the healthcare CEO who got shot, the Luigi who shot the healthcare CEO Brian Thompson, like, and people were like, oh man, he did this like for healthcare justice, and like as the story started to come out, like it's just like, oh, he wasn't even on United Healthcare, and he had no coherent ideology. He was just a crazy person. He is still just a crazy person. Like that. Right, that's it. That's all it was.
I'm not even convinced he did it by the looks of things. I don't know.
I'm not gonna go down that rabbit hole, but like,
innocent until proven guilty, Kevin. That's the American way.
But like, but in a lot of these situations, like, man, sometimes there's no like rhyme or reason to it. It's just like senseless violence in the most literal like use of that phrase. So I don't know, but I know he put some pipe bombs over there. There's something going on in Houston. So by the time this radio show comes out on WYSL, WCKR, and WLEA, like I don't know what will have come out since then, but it stinks. I mean, my only immediate policy solution is like you got to put bollards everywhere. Like, man, we should have more bollards all over the place. I'm pro bollards.
Kevin, I was reading about this before the show. They have road barriers that would normally be there. They have them out for repair.
Yeah.
Because of the bowl game that's coming up. In other words, they took these road protectors out of their normal spot to take them to the bowl game. That's what happened. They would normally
because they're supposed to be there.
Yeah,
but they weren't in this case, which those again, like even the biggest trucks can't really get through those things if they're installed properly.
They're disabled afterwards.
And it's so cheap to install those, like in any high pedestrian area, and like and not just from like terrorist attacks, but like just from like random accidents. Like,
at a street party on New Year's Eve in New Orleans, there would normally be a barricade up. There was not.
there's
That
nothing. It's yeah,
There was nothing. So that's a problem. Bourbon Street is normally cut off and is only pedestrian traffic, especially on big party nights.
yeah,
That did not happen this time.
yeah.
It's very
And
disappointing.
no, it's awful, right? Yeah, people died because of that, and that stinks, right? Like, again, I'm sure just someone not really like thinking about, oh yeah, we're gonna fix this up, and it's only gonna be gone for a couple days, whatever, right? But,
Right.
no, so, but yeah, that's the only policy solution I got out of that now is we should have more ballers places like
Big-
all the time.
Yeah, those big concrete things that every city owns them. The big concrete road dividers. You just set them down.
Yeah.
People can walk
Like,
around them like they're
Yeah, they
nothing.
could be poles, they can be
Yep.
like literally like giant like concrete like bricks or balls.
Yeah.
Like you
Big,
go like
huge-
it,
Yeah.
yeah.
I love it.
Like Target has a bunch of those. Like, you know, that's how they decorate in front of their stores. Is they have like the giant like balls in front of them. But the reason they do that is so like if someone like drives up, you can't drive up through the doors.
Yeah.
That you'd hit one of those.
I agree. I think
all
that
right.
would have been much better.
Yeah.
Much better.
So we got that. So we'll switch topics though to something a bit less serious, but also like frustrating. I'll see if I can share my screen for this, so that at least the viewers online will be able to see. But I'll describe it to you, on the radio side as well, which is this tweet from NYC Healthy, which is, do you
Oh,
plan on
boy.
ringing in the new year in a crowded setting? Wear a mask to help protect yourself and others from COVID-19, flu, and RSV. And then it shows people. I thought it was ice skating at first, but maybe they're just hanging out outside. But like they're all wearing masks outside, and I'm like, man, it is 2024, you know, almost 2025 at this point. What have we learned from COVID? What have we learned from COVID at all? Yeah.
Well, Mask Up New York City has learned absolutely nothing. And like, I can get recommending like wearing a mask in a subway. Like, honestly, I won't even ride a subway because I don't want to get sick. That's nutty.
I mean, like that's what I said. I was like, man, like if they had at least shown it like on a subway in a crowded place, like or at a party,
but a park,
I'd at least understand it.
Yeah,
I'd at least get it. Like that would be logical. But yeah, an outdoor park, an outdoor park where people are out and far away from each other. Why would you make an illustration of people wearing masks in that circumstance? Like it makes no sense. Like, and this is one of those things where like, and I was generally like more okay with masking than like you were, and I'm sure many of the listeners of the show were. Yeah. And I'm still like, this is the dumbest thing I've seen. Like this erodes trust in public health even more.
That's actually good. That is a good point. That you were like, all right, I'm not as anti-masking as you are, you nut jobs. But like now you're just like, all right, this government drawing is absurd. And you're right though, because it is. It's like insane. They do look like they're ice skating. It's so typical like government nonsense of
look, it's just virtue signaling at this point. Like there's no actual like public health benefit to wearing a mask at an outdoor skate rink. Zero. It doesn't make sense. You guys look like fools. You look like you don't understand how this stuff works. Again, like at least show someone on a subway or something. Like again, I'd at least get that. And you know, and I'm sure people would still be like, oh, masking's dumb, but like I'd be like, okay, well, I get it at least. Like it sort of makes sense in the logic that you've built out, but like outdoors, no. Like why would people trust you when you continue to put out stuff like this? Why would people think like, oh, they're gonna have my best interest and like put out smart policies and recommendations when the next pandemic happens, which we might be facing one too. Like the bird flu is like an actual thing. Like maybe it could turn into the next pandemic. Can we trust our public health institutions to respond correctly this time?
No, we cannot.
No, we probably not. Not at all. Like we've learned nothing. That bumps me out.
Kevin, how much time do we have left? Because we have learned nothing.
Minutes.
5 minutes. All right, look, new laws coming into effect in New York State. Are you excited? Are you pumped? Are you ready to hear what they are?
Probably not, but go. Hit me with them.
All right. Well, the first one is like libertarian wheelhouse. They are capping out-of-pocket expenses for insulin at $0. What could possibly go wrong? What could possibly go wrong, Kevin?
Yeah, no. As we all know, price controls always work out super great, and there are no
Always.
negative consequences, and it's going to work out fine for everybody. Yeah, it's going to go great.
It's either going to be taxpayer money subsidizing diabetes medicine, or there's going to be a shortage of diabetes medicine. It's either or, guys. That's the only way that these things work. Period. If they can get full price,
or it's just lumped in the premiums again, right? Like,
it's
going to get paid for. That's the other option. Is your premiums just go up, right? Like,
correct.
so
everybody's right. Everybody's premium goes up. Less people will buy healthcare. So, good job, Kathy Hochul. On a related note, Kevin, the minimum wage in New York State is going to $15.50 in upstate and $16.50 in downstate. And after that, Kevin, it's going to be tied to inflation. What could possibly go wrong? What could possibly go wrong?
It's the floor here, and I mean, as you know, as our listeners know, the real minimum wage is always zero.
It is zero.
It's always zero. No matter what the state says, it's always zero. There's some people who, again, the people who are currently working right now, they will get a bump. You know, if you're working minimum wage, which is a very, very small percentage of the workforce, I'll point out. It's very, very small. Most people do not work minimum wage. But the people it's going to hurt are going to be people on the edge who haven't worked in a while, teenagers. The type of, like, again, we talked about this over the break where I was like, man, I was so stupid on some of my first jobs. Like, but I learned a lot that helped prepare me to like be better, like be a better adult later on. And like, I think of like the next person like me, that young teenager who just needs to learn like what it actually means to work a job, who's not going to get that opportunity because the minimum wage has like kind of cut them out of making it worth it for any business to take the risk at that rate.
And then the other person that it hurts in that scenario is the guy that was busy teaching you stuff and helping you learn from your mistakes, because that guy can't get to the next level of pay without a price increase in an inelastic market. Okay. Like at some point, people are not going to be paying $30 for a Whopper Junior. Okay. They're just going to be like, sorry, that's it. So there's going to be less jobs, less small restaurants, and people that were making better money, that were at a higher level, aren't going to be able to get like recognized for being excellent at their job. They're just going to get more hours. That's it.
Yeah.
And that's really not fair.
Yeah, no, that is a great point, and I'm glad you made it, because I didn't really think of that. But yeah, like it cuts off opportunities for like growth and advancement and like honing management skills as well.
Oh my God, it's awful. Like I read an article about it and it just was so intuitive. And then I kind of explored it in my personal life, and you can see where low paid employees are good for higher paid employees because they get better at their job. They're teaching them. It works. There's money to then pay a good employee more money because things get more productive, especially if they bring lower paid employees along in knowledge, right? And here we go, ruining it all.
I know.
Once again.
I know. I got to play. I was like, oh man, we're coming up on time. Tim's on a roll, but we got to go. All right. Thanks again for joining us here on A Free Solution. We'll continue the conversation afterwards, but just saying goodnight to our radio audience, WSL, CKR, WLEA. Appreciate y'all. Have a great night, folks. Take care. Sorry, Tim.
No, that I didn't actually mean you. I didn't mean the show ending. I meant Kathy Hochul ruining everything for everybody, and the New York State nonsense of price controls, price caps. There was a couple more in there that we could probably talk about before I got to go smoke a cigarette because I can't smoke in my hotel room.
Wow, another thing the government ruined.
Actually, I don't. I've been in hotel rooms where people have smoked, and I can't stand it. It's too like I smoke outside at home too. Like except in my office when I'm doing the show. For the most part, I'm outside smoking. And then occasionally, if I'm drinking a lot in my house with my wife, I might smoke a cigarette in my house. But I feel gross when I do it. I feel dirty. Then I've got to wash everything. So the old. Stretch limos in New York are bound by new safety regulations that would have prevented the FBI plot. No, that's not the right way to say it. Okay.
No, he was an FBI special.
He was a special informant for the
informant,
FBI who opened a limo thing, who then had his son incarcerated for running a shoddy limo service. But anyways, there's new regulations to protect stretched limo patrons.
Right.
So, and a little write-up about the Schoharie crash that doesn't mention the fact that the FBI informant that opened that business, that fled to Pakistan, is off scot-free, and his son is in jail for running a shoddy limo service. Because, like, the Middletown Four, Kevin, they've all been released on compassionate. Like, they got the FBI got excoriated by the judge. Like, they're like, you had a guy pay these guys to show up with gas cans at a synagogue, and now they're in jail for 15 years. They're done. They're out. That's it. This is not okay. The guys were like minimally functioning homeless dudes who are like, yeah, $50. I'll show up with a gas can, you know? Oh,
Right.
I'll even bring gas. Like, here we go. Like, no, I'm not going to set this place on fire. Like,
they're like, oh, that's what we're doing here? Oh, shoot.
Whoa.
Well, I didn't sign up for that.
Okay. And then this one has, as a libertarian, there's a $35,000 a year outside pay cap for New York State lawmakers. I hate them so much. I want them to have less money, but this invites corruption.
Like I kind of got like, I got mixed feelings on this. All right, because you got two pressures. All right, if you're a state legislator and you don't make as much money as you could in the private market on that, right? Like, you know, they just raised their pay a couple years back, I think, but it's not
2022. They gave themselves a 39% raise, Kevin. And look, I want to be clear. That doesn't include their per diems. That doesn't include their committeemanship. That doesn't include all of their reimbursements. That doesn't include their free mailing. Like they get
some extra benefits. But okay, so you do that, and then like, okay, then you can't get more than $35,000 a year in outside income. But to me, I'm like, man, if they want to make more, like, I'd rather them make more that way than like have more incentives to maybe find a way to enhance their fringe benefits even more, right? Like they're
just gonna vote themselves more raises.
But that's what's gonna happen, right? It's like you either do that or they just like raise their pay a bunch. Which I know, like occasionally we'll get folks, you know, like who comment on the show who are like, you know, oh, like the pay should be tied to like the average salary of the district. I'm like, honestly, it's not going to work. Like
it won't work. I like it, but it won't work.
Yeah, like I get the impulse. Like I totally get it. But like, it's not really going to work. Like you're not going to be able to, you know, get people who are going to do that. You're either going to get people who are corrupt or not talented, and you don't really want either of that.
I do have an FBI foils an FBI terror plot though. One.
Oh, many such cases. Let's.
This is in Smithfield, Virginia. A Virginia resident in the Isle of White County worried about large FBI presence and numerous explosions heard off of Foursquare Road in mid-December finally have answers. According to federal court documents, agents had just uncovered a massive trove of pipe bombs and deemed them too unstable to transport. So basically, they've been supervising this guy, Brad Spadford, who was taken into custody on December 17th and charged with a weapons violation. Kevin, he has a sawed-off rifle. We know what the FBI normally does to people like that, so Brad's getting off lucky here. Like, I just want him to know that. And he's actually been released from jail on bail. So, like, but they are going to charge him for all the pipe bombs he had. And what we have here is a hillbilly redneck who got into making his own weapons. And they had a guy in his life. They were supervising him for 2 years, Kevin. Like 2 years. This guy's making pipe bombs, not threatening really anybody, makes a joke about killing Kamala, to the FBI non-agent, but informant. And like it's hard for me to take it serious when the FBI isn't even taking it that
No,
serious.
right.
You know what I'm
Like
saying?
if he's like so dangerous of a dude, like you let him out on bail?
You let him out on bail. He's hundreds of pipe bombs. All right, hundreds of
Yeah,
pipe
this
bombs.
is a dude who's like, who has hundreds of pipe bombs, who's like a dangerous individual who is intent on using violence against the top levels of government in the United States. Like,
That does
I
not
don't know,
seem to
man.
be his motivation. Like that,
Right.
it doesn't.
I
They
mean,
don't
just
seem
like a redneck screwing around, maybe. Again, I don't know. I haven't looked into this case, but like there are a lot of
right.
cases that are sort of like this where you do that. Like
You
you
had
like you have someone who's like into this, like who's like again into like maybe making their own guns, maybe like
right.
pushing the edge of what's legal, right? Or maybe
I
into making
believe
like
that yes,
because you hear about people who like play with like what we call it, like thermite and stuff like that. Like okay, like yeah, it's dangerous stuff. But so you take a person like that, and then you have someone who's like trying to goad them into like making a threat or carrying out actual violence. And unfortunately, like that's the way it happens like a lot of times. And like you'll see like occasionally libertarians who joke about this or like give this advice in earnest on Twitter who are like, hey man, that person in your life who's telling you like you need to get violent with the government, they're fed.
That's FBI.
That's the Fed. Don't listen to them. Cut them out of your life.
Even like. Luckily, I don't know who the Fed is in my life because no one is sitting here telling me. Because first of all, I don't advocate for political violence. I don't like it. I hate the left because I think they're stimulating. I hate the right for lots of reasons too. But there's lots of calls to violence in our society, and I abhor all of them. I abhor war. I will defend myself if I have to, and like I'm ready to. But that's it. That's where it goes.
Right.
And so there's a very funny. I'm trying to find it. Here it is. All right. So this is. I'm quoting a former chief of the FBI counter drone unit, Rob D'Amico, when he says the fact that he had a wearable vest and he had plans and he was training, he was wanting to take a sniper course. I think they caught a very dangerous person well before that he had the ability to act. And I'm just like, we don't really know that. Like he's 36 years old. He's trying to get in shape. He's got some pipe bombs.
Man, like again, I don't know. Like again, I haven't read this story, so I don't know. Maybe he really is dangerous, dude. Again, we just had a terrorist attack, and you got to wonder, like, okay,
True.
was he on the FBI's radar? Was he doing this stuff? Like,
Right.
did they? Again, I legitimately think, okay, like, was the FBI involved in like carrying along this stuff, or was he, was he just getting into it on his own? Because yeah, you're right. Not everyone who like decides to buy like, plates and take a sniper course is going to go and commit like an atrocity. Some people just do it for like, it's a hobby. It's fine. Right.
Correct.
So like that to me, like by itself is enough evidence, but maybe it's coming out like he has a whole manifesto where he talks about the specific way in which he's going to hurt people. Okay,
yeah. I mean, it later in the article they are suggesting, as they always do, that he has ties to far right extremist groups called, like No Lives Matter. So it is possible that they caught a really bad guy. I'm a little skeptical when they let him out on $50,000 bail, and like he had his lethal pipe bombs labeled and away from the less than lethal pipe bombs that he stored most of them in a couple separate freezers, which is actually a pretty safe way to store pipe bombs. They're a little less prone to go off. So, I mean, I don't know. Like maybe it wasn't the FBI. Maybe the FBI foiled a terror plot, and I'm being hasty in my judgment. Yeah,
could be.
Thank the FBI.
Yeah, might happen on occasion.
Yeah. No, you know what? I'm sure that it does happen on occasion. It's just sometimes they really push the limits of what's acceptable.
Yeah. Some of the, like the high profile cases, like it's like again, like I go back to the one in Rochester, the Michigan thing.
Yeah.
Like
the middle field four, like Kevin, the middle field four, literally 4 homeless dudes just show up at a church that the guy had paid them to show up at a church or a synagogue. Oh my God.
Yeah. The thing I was thinking with like the Gretchen Whitmer.
Yeah, that's great too. It's like 2 guys are like out of a group of 10.
Yeah, they're like all related. Feds except for like a couple of them.
Yeah, 2. I think it was only 2. 2 out of 12 guys were not related in some way to the FBI. So, I mean,
Yeah.
come on, man.
All right. But anyway, we should probably call it a night so you can go abuse
Had
your
a blast.
lungs. Yep.
Thanks to Dan Dave out there. It was good seeing Sam San Fratello. Trig made a comment. Trig's one of he hates the government friends. He's awesome.
Right on. Well, appreciate all y'all listening. Appreciate you being here. Have a good night, folks.